This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey, it's Baxter Colburn here from Public House Media. Did you know that we just added a store here at Public House Media? No, I'm not talking about a grocery store where you can go buy apples or bananas or peanut butter, which are all fantastic, especially when peanut butter's on all of those. Anyway, we've added a store here at Public House Media so you can not only come and represent your favorite podcast network, but also represent your favorite shows as well, too. Just go over to thephmedia.com and look in the top right corner where you'll see the button that says Store. Click on that and you can search through all of our great products. Or if you go to our Facebook page, Public House Media, you can see on the left-hand side a tab that says Store. All of our products are listed there as well too. It's the new Public House Media Store. You don't want to miss it. It is fantastic. Buy some of that great swag to support your favorite shows and to support Public House Media. Check it out today.
Tiana Vanderhei here, host of the Refined Redhead podcast on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast. Once you're done with this episode, you should definitely come check out my show, the Refined Redhead podcast, where we talk to real people about relevant information in hopes of inspiring you to chase after whatever dreams you've set out to accomplish, persevering through whatever obstacles are in your way. A new show comes out bi-weekly every Tuesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of the Refined Redhead podcast. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Everyone, welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too. This is Lindsay, and I'm here today with Emily and Elisabeth, and we're here to talk nerdy to you. This week, we're giving you a twofer, with the recent releases of Deadpool 2 and Solo, a Star Wars story, practically back-to-back. As a geek, you might be a little conflicted on which movie you want to go see in the theaters first. So, we were a little conflicted too. Emily has seen Solo now, and Elisabeth has seen Deadpool 2. And I haven't seen either of them. With the holiday, I kind of just got behind on what I needed to get done. And so together, the two of them are going to try to discuss those two movies, what made those movies good, and then maybe I and you can decide which one you want to see. Or you can agree with them or disagree with them, and we can talk about it in the comments too. Just so you guys know, this episode is spoiler-free, so you don't have to be afraid to keep on listening, and the girls are going to be really good because I hate spoilers, and I do intend to see both movies, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Even though some of our co-hosts do like spoilers and don't mind, I really, really don't like them just like you don't. So they're gonna do their best to be as good as they can be at being spoiler-free. All right, so let's start out with Emily.
Okay. Awesome. So, in general, I tend to be just a movie fan. It's hard to find a movie that I don't enjoy seeing, unless I just don't like the actual content of the movie.
Right.
You know, like if I go to see a movie, I'm agreeing to actually see it. You know. So like,
right.
If I
no,
go
I'm the
out
same
to
way.
See a movie, yeah. Like if I go out to see a movie, I already know what I'm getting myself into. Usually. And that was the case with Solo. I really enjoyed it. As a movie, I thought it was great. The storyline was just an adventure story. And I loved what they did with just getting where Han Solo was before we met him in episode 4.
Okay.
And then kind of, so it's before episode 4, obviously, because this is, it's not the Han Solo that we know from the Star Wars episodes. This is like the making of Han Solo, if you want to call it that.
It's his origin story.
Yes, an origin story, exactly. It's an origin story. And Alden Ehrenreich did... Ehrenreich? I'm reading that right? I don't know. Alden Ehrenreich, he did not try to be Harrison Ford, because he's not. And
right.
he did not try to be. He just tried to be Han Solo. And I think that was just the perfect decision on his part. Instead of trying to act like how he thought Harrison Ford would act as Han Solo, he acted his own Han Solo. And that, to me, did a fantastic job.
Right, and that's really important because
Yeah.
sometimes when you see an actor try to be that character by someone else, it's really painfully obvious that they do that. So the fact that he
Yes.
didn't is a very redeeming thing.
Exactly.
We all know how sad I was that Harrison Ford isn't in this one, and I know that he didn't want to be, and I understand. I'm still coming to terms with it, but I get it. So for someone to be
Yes.
able to be themselves be themselves playing Han Solo would be the best way to go about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I really admired that aspect of how he interpreted the role, because he did a really good job with the role. And he acted like a little bit naive at the beginning because he was new to this whole, like, I guess you could call it underworld of smugglers in the Star Wars universe. He was a little naive, but he caught on really quickly, as Han Solo would. He lived out, he was basically pursuing his lifelong dream of becoming the most epic pilot ever. That was kind of like his baseline goal at the beginning of the movie. And so, and he did that. We already know that. If you've seen any Han Solo, Star Wars, anything, you know that he did become an excellent pilot. So, it goes through like where he learned how to fly things and all of that. And then we also find out how he was introduced to Lando Calrissian, how he was introduced to Chewbacca, and there's a couple background smuggler rings that he gets involved in. There is a romance, as you could probably notice, with the Emilia Clarke role, which I think she did a fantastic job in this movie as well. She's a wonderful actress, in my opinion, and she just did a stunning job. And I'm not going to say much else there, because if I keep talking, I'll give things away. So I'll leave it at that. She just did a wonderful job. She just did a great job.
Do you feel like the gentleman who plays Lando did a good job as well?
I think so. Because it's a much younger Lando. But he's a, happy-go-lucky, cool-hand Luke kind of guy. And I feel like that's the Lando that it would progress into the Lando that we knew.
There's a lot of snarky behind the mask kind of smirk, so I can see that. Yeah,
exactly. And then Woody Harrelson was a great introduction with taking. So Woody Harrelson played a guy named Tobias Beckett, and he basically introduced Han Solo into the smuggler life, and so Woody Harrelson's character takes him through the bulk of the adventure, so to say, and so he kind of was his training wheels, I guess you could say. And then Paul Bettany fans, we've got a Paul Bettany appearance in this one. I'm not going to say exactly what his role is, but he again did a fantastic job in his role as well. I don't know if sharing what his role was in this movie would be a spoiler or not. So, I don't know. I really want to, but...
Well, it's interesting that he's in this because, I mean, when does he have the time between being Vision and, some of these guys have so much going on. There's an actor in the movie that Elisabeth's going to talk about as well that was also in Infinity War. So I just feel like they're just hanging out at the studios right now.
I mean, Disney's just busy.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it comes down to. Disney's like, hey, now we have access to this one and this one, and we'll just,
right.
Circle
Well, it's
them all
interesting
in.
too with this movie. I was listening to something about the box office and how they do feel like there's been quite a few Star Wars movies that have come out recently. Now, I don't know, Emily, are you up to date on the movies? Because I
Yes.
don't want my nerd card taken away, but I have not seen Rogue One.
Oh.
And I have not seen the one that came out after Rogue One either. Last Jedi.
You haven't seen
I'm terrible.
that?
Wow. I watched.
I'm not going to hold it against you because oh my goodness, there have been a ton of movies coming out lately, and I mean, I have done my best to keep myself up to date just because my husband is super about it too. And not just because, but yeah, like we've done our best. And my husband loves Star Wars so much, and I love backstory. And so, like, ever since Disney took over the Star Wars movies, there have been 4 movies that have come out. Half of them have been backstory, and it's been awesome. I love it.
Right.
So Rogue One is a backstory story as well.
Right, and then so is this one, but I'm missing one that's going forward in time, right?
Yes, that's The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, episode 8.
You know, and when Han Solo died, I suppose I kind of just was like,
oh, yeah. I can understand after that. I can understand not wanting to see much else. Because if he was your favorite, then I can totally understand. Yeah.
I have a dream of one day having those pillows on my bed that say, I love you, I know.
Yes.
I've just gotta.
Oh.
Yeah, I have dreams about it, so it'll maybe someday. Who knows? Anyway.
I just wanted to also mention, in Solo, there's a couple nice little call-outs to other Star Wars movies too. From the trailers, we know that there are other Wookiees shown in there. There's the Millennium Falcon, so we find out how Han gets the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, cool.
And so, I mean, of course, Chewbacca is in there too, but there's Wookiees other than Chewbacca as well.
Okay.
And so there's a couple other call-outs too to other Star Wars movies. So it's just fun in that way. What I really, really loved though about Solo is that they did not go over the top with the humor thing. Because, like, you know how Thor was just, like, a giggle fest most of the time? Thor Ragnarok was? This was not that way. And I loved it. It was just straight about the story. And there was humor where it was appropriate, where it was, natural. And they didn't force jokes into things. Or, like, they didn't set up specific jokes to be in there necessarily. They just kind of let the movie be itself. And I loved that. It made so much sense. And it was just really, really well done, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead with Deadpool.
Alrighty. Well, for Deadpool, I mean, first of all, I think we need to talk just a little bit about how this live-action Deadpool has kind of come to pass. Our very first introduction to him was obviously the widely panned X-Men Origins movie. And while the first part of the movie is Wade Wilson, it was entertaining and pretty much spot on for the character. When he was finally introduced as Deadpool, I don't think anybody was really happy with the story he was given or the visual effects of his appearance. It was just, nope. There's not really a whole lot about that X-Men Origins movie in general that I think a lot of people like. Personally, there's only one feature that I really like, and that was Taylor Kitsch's Gambit. But other than that, I mean, no, it did not go well. And I think that's probably what put the Deadpool movie on the back burner for so long, was just the fact that this movie, that the very first movie that he was in, was just so widely panned. And I mean, I can understand that. I think the only thing worse than that Deadpool was Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern. And so I think you did mention that earlier, Lindsay, about his Green Lantern. It's pretty neck and neck with his original Deadpool performance, but it's pretty much, yes, just awful. So anyway, obviously, it kind of got pushed back for years, and Ryan Reynolds, thankfully, was very persistent, and he finally got out. He, forced the producer's hands by leaking the trailer, and they finally made it and released it, and it was awesome. I absolutely loved it. I remember sitting there and watching it and thinking, this is exactly what I wanted from a Deadpool movie. I mean, the first Deadpool proved that you could have an R-rated comic book movie and it could still make money. It showed that a comic book movie could be well made after such a disastrous premiere, such as the X-Men Origins. And it also proved that you don't need to be dark and brooding to deal with some pretty angsty storylines. Because, I mean, the first one dealt with some pretty deep, pretty troubling things. And after I finished watching the first Deadpool movie, I remember being really kind of nervous about the second one. Because, I mean, the first one hit so many good things right on the head. I mean, it was from the nonlinear storytelling to the brilliant characterizations to the humor that never seemed to be overdone and was always just right. And even breaking the fourth wall when it was appropriate. It was great. And I was worried that, the sequel would obviously suffer from what some sequels suffer from is just, they just don't live up to the first one, whether it's too much like the first one, so it can't really stand on its own, or they take it too far into left field and they kind of lose what the magic that the first movie had. Or possibly even worse, they take things that were lauded in the first movie and they just dial it up to 11 in the second movie and they make it annoying and cheesy.
I will say what I absolutely loved about the first Deadpool movie was breaking the fourth wall. I thought that was like the coolest thing because you don't see that done. And when it is done and it's done well, it's absolutely just epic. And when Wade does talk to the audience, it is the coolest experience. You like literally are frozen with whatever your response is going to be.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's just kind of quintessential Deadpool. Like, I mean, he does that all the times in the comics. So, I mean, the fact that they were able to accurately capture that on screen was just part of the magic. And I was hoping that they wouldn't make that annoying in the second one, because kind of like how in the 2009 Star Trek film, you had the lens flares, and like at the time it was kind of artistic and cool, but then like in the follow-up Star Trek movie, it was just way overdone and too much, and it's just like, okay, this is just annoying. It kind of became a punchline. And with this, I don't think that they did that. With Deadpool 2, I honestly think they need to take their creative team and apply it to any studio looking to produce a sequel, because I feel like they hit it just right. They kept all of the things that made the first one special and magical. They didn't overemphasize any of those qualities. They made it different enough that the story stood on its own, and I honestly think that you don't really need to see the first one in order to enjoy the second one. Although, I mean, I still highly recommend it, but I don't think it's necessary, And, despite that they were still true to the heart of what makes Deadpool special and awesome and great.
Okay, so what makes Deadpool awesome, special, and great?
I mean, the humor obviously is a huge component of Deadpool. And it's kind of a struggle, I think, with the balance of having just the right amount of humor and not making it a straight up comedy. Because Deadpool is more than just his humor. It's something he's obviously known for, but he kind of injects humor into situations. But the situations themselves aren't necessarily comedic, if that makes sense. And then obviously the breaking the fourth wall, he's very well known for that. And I mean, that's something that does come up in Deadpool 2 is he breaks the fourth wall. And another thing that he, kind of deals with, he does deal with some pretty dark and angsty things, which, some people might not really think of or associate with him off the top. But I mean, if you really sit down and read his comics, he could be written very darkly. And I love the fact that he isn't, because he could be just like a straight up DC stereotype of dark and brooding. But, he chooses to be different. And that's what makes him different and special for me.
Okay. How do you feel about the casting in this one for main characters without giving away too much?
Well, I think the casting was awesome. I mean, Ryan Reynolds, obviously, Deadpool, nails it. We had Domino come in, who was played by an actress named, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Zazie. I haven't really seen anything else that she's in, and I won't lie, I was a little worried just because I wasn't familiar with her work, and, I obviously love Domino, and I didn't want that to be kind of a disaster, but I thought she nailed the character, and her performance was wonderful. Honestly, one of the best parts of it. And Josh Brolin, who was Thanos, he played Cable. And I have to admit my expectations were not very high for him, just because I was so unimpressed with Thanos. I mean, that could obviously be a lot of my bias against Thanos working with that, but I honestly didn't have very high expectations. But he did a great job. I mean, he really encompassed the character of who Cable is and the way that Cable and Deadpool interacts. Like, they seem to get that strange chemistry that Deadpool and Cable have in the comics, where, you know, one is just like super grumpy and then the other is just a lot more lighthearted and funny. And, you know, it's like on the surface that shouldn't really work, but like when you see them interacting, it really works. And I mean, it was just perfect. Though it looks like, you know, just something out of the comics, watching something that was out of the comics. It seemed like every actor just meshed really, really well, not only with their role, but with each other. And I mean, that really, I think, makes all the difference sometimes.
Okay.
Just about, I mean, avoiding any spoilers, I just have a couple of other things. Obviously, as per Deadpool, the movie is packed with Easter eggs and references. So many that I'm not sure we'll ever catch them all. But it really is awesome to see little nods to different things here and there. And overall, still definitely not a kid's film and not something you want to show your kids until they're older. But I mean, once your kids do get older and come of age and you're comfortable sharing, you know, more adult things with them, I think you'll definitely want them to see it because it's one of the few sequels that successfully lives up to the hype.
Yeah, so my daughter will be the oldest out of all of our children. So she'd be the first to be able to see it when she's 28. No.
When she's 28.
Okay, Emily, did you have anything else to add about Solo, A Star Wars Story?
I don't think anything else about Solo. However, I did just recently find out that if you are looking to catch up on the chronological movies of Star Wars, The Last Jedi is going to be on Netflix in June, along with Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, so I'll be good then. I just have to be patient.
Exactly. Just wait a few days and it'll be up for you.
No, are they taking Rogue One down? Should I be watching that within the next couple days?
Good question.
That's the one I should be finding out.
Yes, find out about Rogue One, because I'm not sure. That's a good question.
And then I'll just be good to go. I'll be able to watch everything.
Exactly. It'll be a piece of cake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, though, because, I mean, my husband and I were talking about Solo after we watched it, and it was just... I was just really pleased with how I felt after I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah. And, like, I didn't get a ton of, like... Because I'm totally a backstory person. I love backstory, origin story, that kind of stuff. I didn't necessarily get the, like... mushy-gushy, like, I just loved oh my goodness, the origin story of Han Solo was just the best and most amazing. No, but it was just a good, solid adventure story that just explained where he came from.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny, too, about Star Wars is I had been dating someone who was really into it, who read all of the books, which we did find out are no longer canon.
Oh, yeah?
They were announced by George Lucas back when we were, you know, in high school, so in the 2000s, but they are no longer. So
okay,
yeah. As far as names and other things, anything's fair game right now.
Okay,
that's now, you know, our guys over at Podcast A Star Wars Story are welcome to dispute that. However,
yes, we'll
as far as I've been told, as far as I've been told, it is no longer canon.
That is correct. I know that.
Okay.
I was very invested in a lot of the expanded universe, and I know I was extremely disappointed when they did away with that. Now, they have brought back some things, at least a couple of things into canon. Thrawn is one of them. They brought him back officially in the cartoon Star Wars Rebels, and I remember being so psyched that they finally brought him back. And Timothy Zahn actually wrote another book for him. It's just called Thrawn, and I read it, and it's fantastic. So if you get a chance, I would definitely check it out.
All right, that's good to know.
And then I also wanted to mention, especially with those movies, I wasn't even like watching the movies until one day I had to babysit an 8-year-old, and he just loved them, and his folks were going to be out until midnight. So we decided we were going to just start watching the Star Wars movies. So he, and at the time, I think Phantom Menace had come out. So we could not watch Phantom Menace until I watched 4, 5, and 6. So he was good to me. He made sure I watched them the right way.
Nice. Excellent.
Very good.
So I think that's it for today. I'm not really sure which one won. Obviously, I am going to try to see them both. But I am really excited that they both have good things that both of you said about them, and not so much bad stuff either. So as long as you know what you're going to spend your money on and go see in the theater, absolutely, go watch whatever it is that makes you happy to go out to the movie theater, or wait for Redbox like I do sometimes, or Netflix. Well, thanks for getting nerdy with us today. Talk nerdy to us. Let us know which movie you went out and saw and which one you liked best, if you saw them both. And let us know in social media, in comments here, or on Facebook. Find us, Beauties and Headcanons, on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr to share your nerdy topic suggestions with us. Subscribe to this podcast and others from Public House Media on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and wherever good podcasts are found. We love feedback, so if you liked this episode, or even if you didn't, or if you have ideas for us, please give us a rating and a review so that we can keep making great episodes for you. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Emily.
I'm Elisabeth.
And thanks for getting nerdy with us on Beauties and Headcanons.